Day, everybody, it is Calxiyn here, and if you guys enjoyed this video, you should subscribe for more RWBY videos, and you guys should check out the Patreon if you guys want to get our reactions early, and also these videos early. You can check out early access on Patreon, and by becoming a YouTube membership member here on YouTube. So, Hunter is very excited because
2 weeks in a row!
This is a Hunter theory again, so if you guys didn't see, Hunter made the Cinder is a pirate theory, and Hunter has apparently done it 2 weeks in a row.
It's not a theory. So, it's not a theory. It's an apparition. I've seen into the future.
It's a vision.
I've spoken to the ancestors, and they have told me that Cinder is a pirate.
Yes.
And they've also told me about the Hound.
All right.
Let's talk about the
get
Hound.
into it.
In this episode, we meet the Hound. They're the most terrifying Grimm I think we've ever seen.
Yes, that is true.
Above the Nekalave, above the apathy.
Sure. Yes, absolutely.
And there are 2 routes to what this creature is.
Yes.
We'll go with the first theory.
Yes.
That is wrong.
Okay.
The first theory is that it appears that the Hound, I believe it is based off of the big bad wolf of Red Riding Hood. That could be, it could fight RWBY. I think that would be interesting. It shapeshifts just like the big bad wolf turns into the grandmother near the end. I think that's what it is.
Sure.
I believe it's also an amalgamation, or hypothetically, of course, because this isn't the correct one. The correct one comes later. It is an amalgamation of multiple different Grimms put together by Salem. We see this because, well, of course, it changes. It changes to like a running...
It has cheetah legs.
A quadruped into a biped into a winged
wolf
creature.
Mouth
we also see this because it has 2 mouths. One in the normal mouth spot and one along its head.
Yes, right where my roots are.
Yes, right where
my roots are.
Hail and word Grimm. Right where your roots are. Yes. There's also something interesting in that it spits goop. We see that when it sprouts its wings, its goop falls all over Oscar's face. Yes. Oscar, my poor sweet boy's face. Yes. And the last time we've seen the goop like that was in the Grimm Wyvern at the end of Volume 3. And so
that made implies, like little Grimm.
That implies the creation of like a Salem specialty, if you would.
I think that's true. Now, I do want to insert something. I don't know why this theory cannot also be alongside the other theory that we are going to propose, because like it is possible that Salem created, you know, something that can transform and is still an amalgamation of different kinds of Grimm, but then also be a person, which is what we are going to talk about in a minute. I don't see why these theories cannot coexist. However,
the personhood,
I would like to insert something just before we get into the personhood situation.
Well, I still got a couple more things to say about it as it is, because a lot of people think it might be a person because it speaks, and I'm like, okay, it's either this is a thing that's under direct control of Salem. I almost said Satan for some reason. Salem. And that's why it's able to speak, because that's Salem talking. A piece of evidence for this is that its wings that it pops out are very similar to the wings that Salem has at the opening.
Yes.
Alternatively, it could just be a very old Grimm, and as we learned from Oobleck in Volume 2, it's upsetting that this is what I know.
Yes.
Like, this is what I'm able to draw. Some people are like, oh, I know about math or science. Like, no, RWBY. In Volume
2.
In Volume 2, during the
Mountain Glen
arc, we see Oobleck talk about the Goliath and saying, like, as Grimm get older, they get more intelligent. Yes. So what if this is just an incredibly ancient Grimm that have gotten very intelligent?
And we also sort of see that before it speaks, it makes itself a voice box. And so I feel like that would sort of point to, if this is an amalgamation of Grimm, it has some level of intelligence that Salem has already given it, and it was just able to create a human-like voice box so it could make a noise. Because we did talk about this during our analysis, like, creatures like dolphins and, like, gorillas and stuff like that, they are intelligent. They have their own language. It's just that humans cannot understand it, right? And so when you think about that, it's like, the Grimm could have some communication method that already exists. I mean, we've heard Grimm, like, scream and like caw and stuff before, and so it's possible that it just created something in its own voice to transition what it would have already sort of like primitively thought into human speech, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean? Like, it could have a like reasonable level of intelligence and just created itself a human voice box so it could say no
and just saying no is pretty easy to do.
Yes, exactly.
It's kind of,
and I think animals understand that, right? Like, if you've ever had a dog and you've tried to get something back from your dog that your dog is not supposed to be eating, I'm sure Hunter relates because Hunter has a dog. Like, your dog says no to you. You may not hear actions, right? And so the first sort of idea is that this is like, it's just a Grimm, it's amalgamation of Grimm, it's a very special Grimm, but there is no person inside of the Grimm. However, as Hunter wants to continue to explain,
all of those theories are incorrect, or at least partially incorrect.
Yes.
Because what I believe happened is that this is one of Salem's older henchmen that have been grimmified, much like we see
Cinder
in Cinder.
is beginning
Something
to get
you see
grimmified.
that is that in the Grimm, when it has its arm, it has like a little like hole spot, like a bone, similar to Cinder's arm.
Cinder's bony arm, yes.
Cinder's bony arm. I imagine it's a person grimmified by Salem. It then becomes an issue of like, well, who is it? It's voiced by the same voice actor as Crow.
Yes.
So part of me is like, could it be a Branwen?
That would be so, like, random.
It would be incredibly,
cool.
like, Archie Branwen? Like, poor old Archie.
Raven, Crow, and Archie
Yes,
Branwen.
Raven. Archie, he wanted to be a bird like the rest of the Branwens, but he had to leave poor Archie, and then he got into the wrong crowd, and he was turned into a Grimm.
But yeah, so this is, like, the second half, is that the Grimm is a person and that they have been grimmified. And I think that's something else to really consider here is that we see in the intro that Cinder is like burning, and like I've sort of taken that you know, in my opinion, it seems like it could be likely that slowly over time Cinder just cuts off parts of herself and replaces them with Grimm parts because they are more effective. And if you replaced an entire, it's like the sock, right? If you like, you have a sock and you slowly repair it over time, is it the same sock? Maybe the soul, right? Like maybe the soul of the sock, but like if Cinder was slowly pieced together into a Grimm, would she still have like her intelligence, or as Tyrion would say, or the lack thereof of intelligence, right? And all of that sort of stuff. Would she still have at least her mind and all of those sorts of things? And I think the answer like could be yes. I think if you slowly sort of made someone into a Grimm, they wouldn't necessarily lose their soul. And you would also see that in comparison to Ironwood, how Ironwood chops off parts of himself that are not useful to make himself into a robot, right? Like if Ironwood replaced his head somehow but kept his aura in the machine, would he not still be, he would just be robot mind Ironwood. Like Cinder would be like Grimm Cinder.
A couple other options, it could be Lionheart. We never saw what happened to his body. He did get absorbed by a
I
Grimm.
think Lionheart's actually a really good choice.
That could be really cool. I could also think it could be like older Salem
lackeys, I guess, like talk.
It could also hypothetically be Roman. Roman was eaten.
We will go over all these individually. Let's talk about Lionheart first before we get to the big one, okay? With the Lionheart thing, I think that would be sort of fascinating because Oscar has been kidnapped by Salem, obviously, and Lionheart was one of Ozpin's friends. And so you sort of have this idea of like, you know, whatever happened to Professor Lionheart, you know, now he's like directly under Salem's like control and all that stuff. He's been transformed into a Grimm. And you do have it in like stuff like Wicked and like with Wizard of Oz to some extent. It depends on which versions you read, but they basically say like the animal people are basically turned into the flying monkeys, right? And stuff like that, that they are, you know, that they were human or were at least persons, like people, and that they were turned into the flying monkeys. And so that would be a really good theme to fit in with Salem's like Wicked Witch of the Westness, because it's not just stuff like Wicked, it's actually like if you read about like the Winkies and stuff like that, like in the original text and in the original story. So that would be kind of cool, and I think it would be interesting for Austin to be like, Lionheart, right? And just like somehow recognize him even through all that. And it's like Lionheart was truly, unfortunately, like a coward to the end. But I think that it's still a good idea to have picked someone from the past, because I doubt Cinder is the first person who ever wanted a Grimm arm. You understand what I'm saying? Like I doubt she was the first person to ever do this. And so it could be a reflection of, oh, Cinder, you'll be like that one day. I doubt that Salem would actually tell her, but it could be, you know, someone else who wanted power and they sort of like drowned in that power and went too far. To talk about Adam for a second, we actually made a theory in Volume 6 about Adam turning into a Grimm. Do you remember that? Like somebody pointed out that one of the ears on the Grimm is cut in the same place where Adam had his SDC brand and stuff. And like obviously this Grimm doesn't have eyes, so the person was basically saying that the ears being cut represents Adam's eye being like cut off in a sense. To talk about Roman, I actually think that Roman is the most compelling, and I know know that you have a big one, a big bad one, Hunter.
You'll find if you're wrong, but continue.
But I really like the idea that it's Roman, because I've been watching a lot of Phoenix Knights videos, and I love him. He can convince me of absolutely anything. He is really on the Roman, like, coming back in some capacity train, and I think it would be so interesting if this Grimm was actually Roman for that reason. Just because, like, that could play into Neo's whole thing, you know, like her trying to sort of figure out, and her even asking the Relic of Knowledge, because we talked about that, right? We talked about, you know, Neo taking the relic and asking a question. What if she realizes somehow that this Grimm is Roman, and she's just like, fuck, how do we turn, how can we turn Roman back into a person?
That could also, we've talked a lot about Neo sort of breaking off from from Salem's faction, for rebelling against him.
Yeah.
So I think that would be an excellent catalyst for her kind of switching
sides. And we could also, though, almost not even switching sides, but like even before that, we could have a situation where Salem's like, oh, like, you know, if you want Roman back, you can do this for me and I'll let him go, right? Like, it could be a very interesting situation, because a lot of people are like, well, why would Neo stay here? And I really don't think she's going to. I think soon she's gonna basically betray Cinder and, like, we're all done here. But if this Grimm was Roman, that could sort of be interesting. Now, there's nothing specifically pointing to it being Roman, though.
You know, I think the Roman was a really great idea.
Yeah.
It's wrong.
Okay.
Because the correct answer is that the creature is Summer.
Okay.
So here are all of my evidence. 1, the creature, the Grimm, the Hound, has no eyes.
It's true.
Who has silver eyes?
Summer.
Summer. So we know Salem wants them alive. She wants the silver eyes for some purpose. She probably harvested the silver eyes from Summer and then turned her into a... I understand what you meant earlier when you talked about Theory 1 and Theory 2 can coexist.
Yeah.
That she, like, morphed Summer's body with this already existing creepy, you know, amalgamation Grimm
pieces,
Yes. So I think something like that happened. It makes a lot of sense because in Volume 7, we learned that Salem was there, or at least Salem claims to have been there.
Like, just like your mother, all that stuff,
yeah, when
right?
Summer died. So that would make sense that, you know, she was there, she took the body, she experimented on it.
Yeah.
That was a couple years ago. That would explain the intelligence and how long it would take to develop a unique Grimm like that.
And maybe, like, it could also be a... I don't want to say a selfish thing, because Summer was a good mom, right? But would Summer not also be very pissed off at Ozpin if Ozpin did not tell her, like, the whole truth and nothing but the truth? You know what I mean? And so what if she says no, because, like, Summer, that, like, deep, deep down inside Summer thinks that if she can, like, bring Ozpin to Salem, it will somehow free her, like, in some capacity. I could see that happening. And what this reminds me of, this is so random, is spoilers for Kingdom Hearts 3, but there is a character in Kingdom Hearts 3.
How dare you sully my brilliance?
It makes sense, though. So there's a character that has sort of like this dark guardian on the back, and there's a scene in Kingdom Hearts 3 where you defeat this guy, and the dark guardian rips this tape off of his mouth that has kept him silent, and he's actually Terra, one of, like, the old Keyblade Masters that have been missing for a while, and that this dark creature is actually Terra, and then Terra is transformed back into himself, like, after that is discovered. It's kind of hard to explain if you haven't played the game, but I would sort of think that that dark guardian is very similar, because the Heartless are very similar to the Grimm. Let's just start with that. But that could be a very similar concept, that, you know, Terra's heart turned into a Heartless, and, you know, he eventually was able to, I guess, rip this, like, chains off and then speak and then get his body back and all of that sort of stuff. And so that is what's reminding me of the Summer situation, is that, like, maybe that's why the Grimm says no. It's not just because, like, it's following orders from Salem, but because even this Grimm has some beef with Ozpin if it was Summer.
That could make sense. I also think, if it is the big bad wolf, that makes a certain amount of sense, because like RWBY is obviously Red Riding Hood, and if the big bad wolf pretends to be
Grandma.
The grandma.
And all that stuff.
And also it could kill the grandma, whether or not it's really Summer in control, or if it's the Grimm, maybe that was the Grimm.
Because there are some little Red Riding Hood stories that do kill the grandma, and the grandma doesn't come back, but Little Riding Hood is saved. So there's that to consider.
It implies a relationship. Now, I think there could be really two really interesting things narratively they do with this. Because
Yes.
I imagine they don't reveal this right away. I imagine it happens
Yeah.
in one of two ways. One, either Ruby starts fighting the Hound, uses her silver eyes right when the Hound's about to kill someone.
Yeah.
It burns off some of the Grimm, and maybe kind of like in Venom, where Venom opens up and you see Eddie's face, it kind of like part of it burns
There's
off.
some summer inside.
And you
That's
see, and you see
fucking
some like
crazy.
horrible
Oh my God.
pale looking like zombie, like Darth Vader without his mask off.
Oh boy.
Summer.
Like Voldemort Summer.
Yes, exactly.
Oh.
And we see her and she like makes some gasp, and then it's like Ruby's like, "Oh my God, Mom," and then it collapses back on her.
Oh my God. I think that's a brilliant idea.
That would be
actually.
terrifying. I actually just realized this. If Raven watched 2020, if Raven comes back, maybe Raven knows that's how Summer died.
Oh my God.
And so
that'd
maybe
be
she
crazy.
freaks the fuck out and she's like, "Everyone out of the whale!" And they all run out of the whale, and it's just like, "Why did you do that?" And it's like, that creature was your mother.
Oh my God.
And that could be really punchy. That would be super fucked up. It could be a mix of these two things. Either this could be the post-credit scene, if they're still doing post-credit scenes.
Yeah.
I think they'll do that. We see Salem go up to it like, "Thank you." She's like, I don't know, I'm pressing you, sorry.
It's
She's
okay.
like petting the creature. It's like, "You've done very good for me, Summer." And then it opens up and we see Summer's face.
Damn.
That would be fun. Alternatively,
Alternatively,
it could be a mixture of those last two things where Raven's just like, "That creature is your mother," and as she says it, it cuts over
Damn.
to Salem and the Summer creature, and it opens up and bam, Summer.
I really like the idea that it opens up mid-fight
horrifying,
though, and like
yes.
no one's expecting it. I think that's a much better idea than like,
Yes.
this creature is your mother, mwahaha. Like I would
Yes.
like it to happen a bit more naturally.
Mhm.
Here's the thing about this. I understand the pros and cons. Like on one hand, some people since Volume 2, like I know Arnold has really loved the idea that Grimm can become so old that they become intelligent and that they are smart and like sort of like getting there. You know what
Yes.
I'm saying? And so if the theory, or if it's correct that it's a person, that would denounce the idea that Grimm can get to that point. So I understand why people don't want it to be a person. You understand what I mean? Because they want this idea that Grimm can be intelligent without having to combine with a human. You know?
Mhm, mhm.
So I understand that. But at the same time, would I love to see the Grimm open its mouth and Summer be in there? Yes. And I would like, maybe that could be another question for the Relic. Like, how can we save Summer? And it would almost be interesting if they did go Kingdom Hearts with it, and that every Grimm that exists right now, maybe not every Grimm, because some of them were originally created by the God of Darkness and stuff before humanity. But think about it, like, what if every Grimm that exists right now used to be a person? And it was just because, like, I don't know, like, where are they all coming from? They're coming from the Grimm pool? Like, fine, okay, I get it, right? But at the same time, you have to wonder, how are all these Grimm getting around the world if the Grimm pool is on one continent, right? Like, I'm sure that some Grimm, like the really, really old one, like I don't even know if the really, really old ones are still here. Because listen, right, like I'm sure there are some Grimm from the God of Darkness, like the ones in like the deep, deep ocean that are still like the originals. But clearly the Grimm have been repopulating. Like humanity has not killed all the Grimm. They're respawning, right? And so how would they be respawning unless it could be possible that when a Grimm kills a person, a new Grimm somehow spawns, and maybe it has to do with that ooze. Because all the Grimm we've seen turn into dust. So what if that dust eventually settles into some sort of like liquid, like goes into the atmosphere?
I can
or
imagine
something,
maybe
like
it's like recycled,
yeah,
like
recycled dust.
the water
yeah.
cycle, but with Grimm goop.
Exactly.
I can understand
That's
that.
what I'm
maybe.
sort of thinking. And so, like, what if, like, the humans have something to do with that? Because it's, I don't know. I like Kingdom Hearts a lot. And so I guess that's why I'm saying it. But I think it would be an interesting idea. At least it would be interesting if the Grimm that Salem makes herself would have to come at a price. And that price could be stealing the energy from either Silver Eyes or human lives. And I think that at least, if not all the Grimm, because, again, in Kingdom Hearts, there are pure bloods and there are manufactured ones, right? And so I'm sure some of the Grimm are pure blood Grimm, but imagine if Salem's, like, more advanced creations would take human lives and Silver Eyes to create, like, those mechanical, Heartless. So, yeah.
The Grimm Hound is Summer.
Okay.
Is my point.
Yes.
I've seen it.
Okay. Hunter's seen it, guys.
I've seen it. I'm almost certain that's true. Or the first theory that's probably more likely is true. But Summer is definitely definitely the Hound. I think that Raven might see it, freak out. I think it's perfect.
So yeah, guys, that is all from us. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and we will see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.